Good afternoon, everybody. That was made for 100 days to go. I think Andrew said it's actually now 93 days to go. That's a whole week gone, and I measure it actually in terms of weeks. 13 more Wednesdays to go before the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games. I'm told it's a very good sign that I'm still counting down to the beginning rather than to the end. So we'll stick with that optimistic note in the rest of my comments. And the theme really of our 100 Days to Go celebration was just how we in this country are getting ready to welcome the world. Of course, the world, in some respects, is already in London, but if you think of what the athletes are doing around the world, 15,000 athletes, 10,500 of them for the Olympic Games, 3,500 to 4,000 for the Paralympic Games, getting into their final training, qualifying for the teams, trying to stay injury-free. I think you saw in the film our own volunteers, our games makers, as we call them, embarking on their 1 million hours of training, getting ready for their 8 million hours of volunteering. All that's going on at the moment. The officials who are coming are getting ready. Our torchbearers, the torch lands, the plane lands soon from Greece. 8,000 torchbearers are going to be carrying the Olympic flame around the United Kingdom. And you also saw some of the preparations for our ceremonies, and we've got many, many performers preparing both for those ceremonies but also for many of the events that are going to be part of the finale for the Cultural Olympiad Festival 2012, which kicks off in June. So, look, it's actually great to be here. We are in an Olympic venue, not actually here in the nightclub, though I suspect this will be an impromptu venue at Games time, but the NGA, as we call it, North Greenwich Arena, will be the home for the basketball finals, the quarterfinals onwards, as well as artistic gymnastics. We had a terrific test event here in January for the gymnastics. It was, if I can take you back, it was that great emotional moment when the British rhythmic gymnastic team didn't quite hit the points target, but then somehow we made it all work a couple of weeks later. But that's already taken place here, so it's wonderful to be in an Olympic venue. The last time I was here, actually, I was talking to the residents of Greenwich, trying to persuade them that it would be okay to have an equestrian arena in their beautiful park, which, as we speak now, is beginning to be constructed. Jonathan Edwards, I think, addressed this group last year. We've done a lot in the last 12 months. 3 or 4 things I just point out for you, so I think they were really critical for the project. Number one, what we call the big build was complete. In other words, the new permanent venues, the ones on the Olympic Park that are going to be there long term, were finished during the course of this year, on time, on budget, giving us time to do our rehearsing and practicing. And what the British construction industry demonstrated by getting that done, represent hugely powerful credentials for winning future business around the world. We also finished off our domestic sponsorship program. In the organising committee, we have to raise all our own money, just over £2 billion of it. The key part was to raise £700 million of private sponsorship money, and I'm delighted to say we hit the target we set in the bull market, even though we had to collect most of it in the bear market. So for me, of all the things this project has done, pulling that together has been gravity-defying, and it says a lot for the British businesses who participated, for their patriotism, what they saw in the value of being associated with the biggest thing happening in our city, in our country, in our lifetimes, and that's why they signed up. We've also sold an enormous number of tickets, unprecedented demand compared to anywhere in the world, compared to any other event actually, for tickets for both the Olympic Games, broke all records for the Paralympic Games as well. You saw the volunteers, 70,000 of them recruited there in training, and the torch relay routes locked down. In the final 93 days, 13 weeks, really 3 things that I'm focused on. Number one is mobilizing this enormous workforce. I've got about 4,000 people working for me at the moment in the organising committee. That'll double by the time I get to Games time, but then I have to train and mobilize the 70,000 volunteers, and on top of that, the 100,000 contractors who work for people who are doing the catering, cleaning, security, etc. for us. So think of it as a 200,000 strong workforce that we have to deploy to welcome the world on our behalf. So getting that right is very important. The second thing we have to get right is we've got great plans, but refining them down to the finest detail and making sure that they survive contact with reality. So testing, testing, testing. I've actually just come from what we call a command post exercise, where together with different parts of government and all the people involved in the games, we've been rehearsing what we might do if some things might go wrong. So we had a toxic plume over Greenwich this morning, which you'll be delighted to know will dissipate during the course of the night. But just dealing with how, event cancellation, the communications that go around it. So that kind of testing goes on as well. We've also run a whole load of test events. I talked about the gymnastics. We've run now 33 out of the 42 we're holding. The one currently going on at the moment is a shooting event down at the Royal Artillery Barracks, so that's going on. Then we have a very big test event in the Olympic Park, bank holiday weekend, where we'll have 6 events running simultaneously, and that'll really test crowd management into, through, and out of the Olympic Park and help us get ready for that. The third thing we have to do is really finish off our building. I talked about the permanent buildings, but really a critical part of our venue strategy was we're not going to build anything permanently that we don't have a long-term use for. No white elephants. The consequence of that is we have a lot of temporary building to do at the last minute. I talked about the equestrian venue in Greenwich Park. We're putting up a beach volleyball venue in Horse Guards Parade, which has to go in after Trooping the Colour and the Diamond Jubilee. So still a lot of quite significant building work to go on, lots of cables to lay to make sure the technology is all in the right place. So still, if you go to the Olympic Park today, for example, you'll see an enormous amount of building work still going on. It's like when you have the builders in there in those final few weeks, all the tradesmen come there together, and getting the integration straight is really the challenge at the moment, because the one thing we know is that we have the mother of all immovable deadlines, so we have to get that integration right. To give you a sense of the countdown to the games over the next few weeks, the 18th of May, the Olympic flame arrives and begins its 70-day journey right around the UK. It'll start in Land's End, work its way around the country, last 7 days in London, leading up to lighting the cauldron in the Olympic Park. In June, you'll start to see a lot of the teams arriving. We've got 70 or 80 of them are doing their pre-games training here in the UK. So there are camps all around the UK. For example, the Jamaicans, that's the one everybody talks about because of Bolt, are going to Birmingham. But you'll have the Australian swimmers, for example, go to Manchester. So lots of sort of excitement building as the teams arrive. 21st of June, Midsummer's Day, we kick off Festival 2012. That's the finale to the Cultural Olympiad. 1,000 events around the country. Something like 10 million tickets, most of them free for things going on there. Early July, the media start arriving. We'll have about 20,000 of them from around the world. 16th of July, the Olympic Village opens. That's about 3,000 apartments to house the 10,500 athletes and 5,000 or 6,000 officials that will stay with them. 23rd of July, everybody starts arriving for the opening ceremony, and the 27th of July, we have the opening ceremony. Danny Boyle's Isles of Wonder, and you saw some of the preparations going on for that in the preparation film. So, as you can see, we're preparing and rehearsing for just about anything that could happen. I suspect a number of you in the room have already played your part, whether you're individually games makers and working with us, or you've been one of the companies involved. I mean, we've had 44 fantastic domestic sponsors who've come on board and have been a tremendous contribution to this project, not just because of the money they've put in, but because of the expertise they've brought to delivering the games. 11 global sponsors that come along with the IOC, so 55 in total. Over 50 licensees who are providing product that we sell as part of getting people excited about the games, but as also a source of revenue. My message to you really as businesses is, number one, I hope you all agree that the games succeeding is extraordinarily important for London and this country, and we're on track to succeed. So getting behind it as ambassadors and advocates is incredibly important to us. I think from an individual point of view at your businesses, please make sure you're prepared, both operationally, if it affects you in terms of deliveries or whatever, and your people getting to work, but also in terms of how you will allow your people to celebrate and be part of the games, because I think the way you engage with them on that will be very important to your relationship with them too. And of course, getting everybody to feel part of the celebration is a big part of what we're about. Look, just 13 Wednesdays to go. On the TV, about 4 billion people, most of the world's population, get to see some bit of it. So they'll all be watching. Expectations are going to be very high. we won't disappoint, and I think we're going to finish off with a short clip of us welcoming the world.